Hey there. I am KMO, the host of the Sea Realm podcast and also the author and illustrator of the Greater Earth Betterment Bureau comic, otherwise known as GEB. And you can think of me as a human tumbleweed. I have lived in a lot of places, mostly the United States, but I've lived in Japan twice, lived in Australia once. But here in the US, I've lived in Arkansas twice, Missouri twice, Washington State twice, Alaska, Tennessee, North Carolina, Maryland, New York, and now I am in Vermont. I've been here in Vermont since March of 2016, which, you might think back, it was an election year, and you know who won that year. And over the next 4 years, it seems as if the Blue Tribe here in the United States has gone absolutely batshit crazy. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm, rooting for the Red Tribe, because they've been batshit crazy for most of my life. But in the Trump years, the Blue team absolutely lost their shit. But now that I think back on it, I've seen it coming. I've seen it developing. Back in 2011, I was living in Tennessee, but in the fall of 2011, I visited New York City, and that's when Occupy Wall Street got started. And I visited Zuccotti Park on a few occasions. And, I went to a rally in Times Square, and I was chanting with the rest of them. And this is when the unions in New York City were on the same team as the Occupy Wall Street people. The labor unions, they went to the rallies. They lent their legitimacy and authority to the cause for a while. But then I think the labor unions started to see what I noticed when I was down at Zuccotti Park. Dirty, dreadlock, white guys with dreadlocks, basically people who didn't really represent working people. They represented more of this complainer class, this left, extreme left wing, anarchist, the term hadn't been invented yet as far as I know, but the social justice warrior left. And it was really obvious in their so-called progressive stack. People were there 24/7. They didn't have jobs to go to. They could just stay there. And the longer something took in that environment, the better. So, their meetings and their decision-making processes were really, really drawn out. So drawn out that somebody like me, who was traveling, I had no patience for that stuff. But what I really had no patience for was the so-called progressive stack, where, the order in which people got to speak in any meeting was determined by how many boxes they checked off, on that Oppression Olympics checklist. So, if you were the right color, the right gender, the right biological sex, the right sexual orientation, and, going down the list with the other so-called, oppression badges of honor, the straight white guy who, actually wanted to work a job and raise a family, bottom of that heap. That's not going to work. That's not workable. But at the time, I kind of brushed it off. But in hindsight, I see that, this lunacy on the left has been growing for a while. What's new, from my perspective, is that the Democratic Party now endorses it, and more importantly, the tech oligarchs enforce this mindset. They will kick you off of the major platforms if you say certain things, things like, the fact that there's a coronavirus research laboratory in Wuhan, China, is of some interest. It is worth asking if there was any connection between that and the fact that this coronavirus pandemic originated in this place. You can be excommunicated from the public realm as administered by the tech giants for saying things like that. We'll see. We'll see if this video gets taken down. Look for it on, BitChute or Minds.com or whatever. All those places where I should be posting these videos but don't, out of sheer laziness. But over the last 5 years, the insanity on the left, and don't think I'm cheerleading for Team Red, because they've always been insane, but over the last 5 years, the nuttiness on the left has really, really taken hold, particularly online, but I also see it, as I walk around my little rural Vermont village here. So it's not because of the Blue Tribe craziness that I'm leaving Vermont, but it's certainly significant. It's in my mind, that I'm about to move from deep blue Vermont to deep red Arkansas. And I'm not going to talk about Arkansas in this video. I'm moving there later this week. So, future videos will be from Arkansas. But this is my out of the frying pan, leaving blue state America video. What am I leaving? Well, for a time, I never wanted to live in Vermont. It was never an ambition of mine to move to Vermont. It was just sort of an accident of my personal history that I ended up here. But for a time, it was great. I have this one-bedroom apartment here. It includes electricity, and the heat is provided by electricity. So really, I have no utilities. I just pay, a flat fee to live here. It's a very comfortable space. And before the pandemic, I'm in a complex with a medical center, but also right across the parking lot from where I live is the community access TV station, Fact TV, where I've done many videos over there using their equipment and, calling upon their expertise. They've made several movies, movies so-called, scripted fictional dramas and comedies and things that I've participated in. I even got to write one. And also, this was just brilliant for me personally, there was a gym. There still is a gym, but it's closed now because of COVID. But it was in that same building right across the parking lot. So even though most of the time I lived here, I had a car, didn't really need one. I make my living as a podcaster and writing and drawing comics, which I do here in my apartment. I did shoot video for the TV station down at the town hall, which is also a movie theater. It's the Bellows Falls Opera House movie theater. And it is a treasure. I'm certainly going to miss the movie theater. But by the time COVID came around, I was already itching to leave. I've lived in big cities. I've lived in suburbia. I've lived out in the countryside. For most of my life, I've been scraping by. But for a time in my early 30s, I had money. I lived in a swank high-rise condo in downtown Seattle for a time, for like 2 minutes. But I've also lived in a cabin in the woods in Tennessee with internet and electricity, but no plumbing. I've lived in a lot of different situations. I've lived in apartments. I've lived on fishing boats in Alaska. I've lived in a variety of circumstances, and I can say from my 53 years of life experience that I prefer to live in a city. There's more going on in a city. You can walk around in a city. It just fits my personality better. And whatever your interest is, if there's a big city with millions of people living there, no matter how weird you are, no matter what an outlier you are in terms of your interests, there's enough people there to form a community around those interests, which was really, really true in New York City. So after Tennessee, I moved to New York City. And as I say, I prefer city life. My best life experience, I think, was in Seattle. I lived in downtown Seattle for about 4.5 years, right by Westlake Center. So I've seen videos now of what the place is like now. Homeless tents everywhere. The police no longer are arresting drug dealers. Homeless people who have 60, 70 arrests still haven't been charged with anything. Seattle, whew. I don't know if it's as bad in real life as it appears to be on YouTube, but I have no desire to go back there just now. But when I first moved to New York City, I would go to parties. I went there to live with a woman who is very adept socially. She had a great social network, and we went to a lot of great parties, a lot of great events. And I'd be there talking to people who I was really simpatico with. I got along with these people really well. But every now and again, really, really offensive, gross, mean-spirited, evil, stereotypical language would come out of their mouth talking about people in the middle of the country, talking about the red tribers. It's in New York City, you can absolutely assume that anybody who's in the red tribe, is a murderer and is having sex with their sister or whatever. Just the grossest, nastiest, most mean-spirited, evil shit would just roll out of their mouths really casually. You can't rephrase it, you can't reframe things for them so that they understand how really disgusting they're being. They just don't see it. But again, they're lovely people, most of the time, as long as you don't talk about the red tribe. That was New York City. Then I moved here. Then Trump got elected. And, when the George Floyd thing happened, the young people here got together. They marched around, this all-white Vermont village, and they shouted angry denunciations about white people at each other. It's like Mm. No, no consciousness of, working class versus the oligarchy. No consciousness around, disparities of wealth and opportunity. Everything's race and gender, race and gender, race and gender. That said, I really like this place. I like aspects of it. I like the TV station. I like the gym. Now that the gym's closed, that's kind of a deal breaker for me. So in Arkansas, I will be in a gym working out again. And when I work out, every aspect of my life improves. And when I stop working out, every aspect of my life suffers. So really looking forward to getting back into the gym. But here in Vermont, like at the start of COVID, I heard that everybody who applied for Medicaid was accepted. Now, I always make like $2 more, $2 above the line for qualifying for Medicaid. I got it for 2 minutes in New York City under Obamacare, and then we moved away, and I got here and I didn't qualify anymore. But with COVID, I qualified in Vermont. I had a torn retina a few weeks ago. I got first-rate laser eye surgery up at Dartmouth Hitchcock, and the state of Vermont paid for it. So, the blue tribe, the blue states are pretty generous, in taking care of people compared to the red states where I'm going. So I'm leaving, medical care. I go down to a local drop-in center and pick up lunch for free most weekdays. And for a while I was doing it because I was really absolutely broke and just couldn't afford food. But even when things got a little better for me, financially, I continued to go down there because it was really my only social contact. Here I am in COVID in this little apartment. I never see anybody but my cat. So it's a pretty lonely experience. But socially, the organized institutions of social safety net are just so much more generous here in blue state Vermont than they are in Arkansas, in deep red state. But you could look at it like, if you don't make much money, maybe you're unlucky, maybe like me, you just prefer not to, or you're just a leech. Maybe you're a drug addict or whatever, but you're not really getting by. You're not providing for yourself. In a place like Vermont, you can mooch off strangers. You can mooch off state institutions. You can mooch off charitable institutions. You're not mooching off any person in particular that even though you recognize the faces and the voices of the people that you interact with. It's really the collective that is providing for you. Whereas in red state America, you're going to mooch off your parents. You're going to mooch off your friends. You're going to mooch off people in your church congregation. I mean, you're going to lean on people that you know and personal relationships for support when you're not making it yourself, because the collective institutions of the society are pretty tight-fisted. They're pretty stingy. So I'm voluntarily going from blue state generosity to red state, bootstrap, get it done on your own or lean on your family, but don't come crawling and crying to the collective, because there ain't none. So I'm not picking a side here. I am gray tribe. I'm a pox on both your houses kind of guy. I'm not blue tribe. I'm not red tribe. I'm not tempted to join either one. I can blend, with either one when it's convenient to do so, or, when my safety depends on it. But no, I'm not simpatico or, even really sympathetic or friendly with either tribe as tribes. I'm really irritated with both of them. It's just that when I was growing up, the red tribe, they were already crazy, particularly in the 80s when I was growing up, the Reagan years, the Bush years. The people, the religious conservatives, the Republican Party has never really, done much for the religious conservatives. They promise a lot and they pander to them to get them to vote Republican, but then they don't really deliver a whole lot. But, when it was convenient for the Republicans and the right to force people who were not professed Christians to act as if they were, they had no moral reservations about using their power to compel other people to behave as if they believed in ways that they don't. And at the time, at least from where I was standing, the blue tribe, the Democrats, didn't do that. But now that's all they do. I mean, that's all they seem to be able to care about, climate change, wealth disparities, automation and outsourcing, putting a lot of downward pressure on working people here in the United States. The Blue Tribe seems to have no interest in addressing any of those in a substantive way, but man, are they eager to impose censorship? Are they eager to punish people for offending their, I guess, religious sensibilities? I mean, really, they're ideological sensibilities, but they come across more as religious sensibilities. Basically, the Blue Tribe now behaves in the way that the Red Tribe did in the 80s when I hated the Red Tribe and, champion the Blue Tribe by default. So now I'm leaving the cradle, the comfortable cradle of blue state Vermont, and I'm going to the harsh bootstrap land, land of opportunity, the natural state of Arkansas. Wish me luck if you wish me luck. Wish me failure if that's your thing, if that's your preference. But either way, I will be documenting the transition, so stay tuned. And if you have questions or suggestions or requests for things that you'd like to see or hear about, post them in the comments below. All right, thanks a lot. I will talk to you again soon.